Well, joining us now, Larry Shover. He's Chief Investment Officer at FSG Alternatives in Chicago. Larry, good to see you again there. It's all about balance sheet normalization this time around. But, you know, we still have to keep our eye on the ball when it comes to the pace of Fed hikes. Do you expect that we will see any change to the dot plots coming through tomorrow?
You know, I don't, and I don't think the market does either. Keep in mind that this whole rally has been the reflation trade. The baton has been passed to the banking industry. We got a bank index up $6 in the last 7 days. I think the market's expecting just more of the same, that they're unveiling balance sheet normalization to begin in October, perhaps implying a rate hike in December and keeping the dots similar, 3 hikes in 2018 and 3 in 2019. I think the trouble, if there's any, is that if this messaging comes out any more dovish than online, I think that's going to be trouble. Will reverse the reflation trade and also take the baton away from the banks, which has led to rallies. So it'll be very interesting to see, but asset class volatility around me is suggesting it's going to be carry on business as usual.
Isn't, you know, we talk a lot about inflation, but isn't the real elephant in the room fiscal stimulus? We don't have Janet Yellen herself or most members really, you know, having fiscal stimulus that could potentially be likely in the form of tax cuts coming later this year in those forecasts. So again, I mean, will we see talk about the potential impact of any fiscal stimulus in, you know, the conversation tomorrow?
You know, I don't think tomorrow, but I do think that's an overhang on the market. Healthcare, but especially tax cuts. And I think it's great for headlines, but the plan that's been unveiled so far is quite ambitious, and I can't see it being passed. Perhaps part of it by the first quarter of 2018, but clearly there's just too many deficit hawks, both sides of the aisle. The money's going to have to come from somewhere, so I just don't think, I think it's great for headlines, but I think slowly but surely investors will be let down, realizing that the tax cuts that are being advertised will not pan out.
Now, you know, we all pore over every word that are in these statements and every word that Ms. Yellen will be saying in the press conference in the wake of, you know, that statement being released. So how do you anticipate wording around risk assessment will come through this time? You know, is there a big need to change the language about risk assessment at this time? No, I don't think there is. I do think something will come across about the latest hurricane and how that doesn't have a long-term impact. But when it comes to risk assessment, clearly people are worried about that, but not overly concerned like they've been in the past. There doesn't seem to be a justification for her to change that language right now. And I think really there's no justification for her to lower the dot forecast. And I think that's why the markets continue to plod along, why the stock market continues to rally, is that I think it's just going to be business as usual. And so banks will be continuing their run? Yeah, I just don't think so. I mean, you know, the fact remains it's bigger than this. I mean, they talk about the lack of inflation, need fiscal stimulus. I mean, that is the future. And believe it or not, there is inflation. Unfortunately, the inflation is in asset prices. It's not in the things that are being measured by everybody else. And crazy things are happening. I mean, consider this. You have like in Italy, you have double B high yield bonds yielding a better treasury rate than our U.S. treasury bonds. Mm-hmm. And that's crazy. So I think when you realize the trillions of dollars that at some point will have to be unwound. I mean, there's going to have to be dislocations in the market. Right now, it seems like everybody's doing a great job. Everything's being telegraphed. Yeah. But the fact remains that if they are truly going to start unwinding, it's going to cause some dislocations.